by any reasonable measure, it should be enough. The career is real, the income is real, the respect from the people around you is real. The things you have built, the position, the reputation, the life that looks, from any external vantage point, like a success, those are not pretend. You did them. They happened. They are yours. And yet there is something that the achievement has never quite reached. Something underneath the results that does not respond to evidence the way the rest of you does. Something that looks at everything you have built and says, not yet, not quite, still not enough to be sure. And so the next thing starts. Not because you have run out of ambition, or because the last thing failed to satisfy in some technical sense, but because the last thing, upon completion, did not produce the specific feeling you were building it to produce, did not close the gap between what you have done and what would finally be sufficient, did not silence the part of you that has been running the question since before you were old enough to know it was a question. The question being, am I enough? And the answer being, not yet. Do something else. Keep going. Prove it again. This is the psychology of men who cannot stop proving themselves, not the men who lack ambition or who fail to achieve. The men who achieve consistently and continuously and still carry, underneath the achievement, the specific restlessness of someone who has not yet convinced himself, who is successful in the eyes of everyone around him and not yet successful in the one assessment that has always mattered most, his own, the one that was set up before he had any say in the matter, in a place he may not have fully examined, by someone whose opinion he has been chasing in the form of accomplishment for most of his life. The need to prove yourself does not arise from ambition. Ambition wants things. The need to prove yourself is trying to answer something. And the thing it is trying to answer is almost always a verdict that was delivered early by a parent, by an environment, by a specific set of experiences that established in the boy's nervous system a baseline sense that who he was, naturally and without performance, was not quite sufficient, that he had to become something to be accepted, that love or approval or respect was not his by default, but by demonstration, that the demonstration was always required, and that the bar kept moving. For many men, it was a father who was not easily impressed, whose approval was real but rare, who set high standards and praised compliance with those standards, and whose silence or disappointment when the standards were not met was felt as a specific kind of verdict. And the boy learned that performing well produced the father's warmth, and performing poorly produced his absence. And the lesson became the engine. Perform well enough and you will be enough. Keep the performance going and the warmth will continue. Stop performing and find out what you feared, that the warmth was always conditional, that you were loved for what you did rather than who you were.
For others, it came from being dismissed, being told, directly or indirectly, that you were not the smart one, the capable one, the one with the future, being underestimated by someone whose estimation mattered. And the response to that dismissal, the vow, conscious or not, to prove them wrong, became the engine. The proving wrong has been running ever since, even after the person who dismissed you is gone, even after the context that generated the dismissal is decades past. The engine does not care that the person is no longer watching. It just runs, because proving them wrong is what the system was built to do, and built systems run until they are examined and consciously replaced. The achievement is real, the drive is real, but the engine running underneath the achievement is not ambition. It is anxiety wearing ambition's clothing. It is the boy's question, am I enough, dressed in adult accomplishment and sent out into the world to find an answer that the world can never quite provide, because the question was set inside him, and inside answers require inside work, not more outside achievement. The first course is the present moment of every accomplishment. The man who is always proving himself cannot fully inhabit his own successes. The moment of arrival, the promotion, the deal closed, the goal reached, is briefly satisfying and then immediately replaced by the next target. The satisfaction does not accumulate, it disperses, because the satisfaction was never the point. The point was the proof. And the proof, once produced, is immediately insufficient, because the question it was supposed to answer is still running. So the next proof is required, and the man moves through his own achievements like someone passing through rooms, briefly in each one, never staying long enough to live in any of them. The second course is the relationships. The man who is always proving himself is, in a specific sense, always somewhere else, always partially in the next thing, always with one part of his attention on the horizon of what still needs doing, rather than fully present in the life that is already here. And the people who love him feel this, not the work itself, they understand the work, the quality of being with a man who is never quite finished, who is present in body and partially absent in the way that matters, who loves them genuinely and cannot quite give them the fullness of his presence, because the fullness of his presence is always partly occupied by the thing that still needs to be proved. The fourth course, and the most honest one, is the life, the specific, particular, irreplaceable life that was happening while the proving was going on. The years of his children's childhood, the seasons of his relationship, the ordinary days that contained something worth being present for, that passed while he was preparing the next proof of his worth. Not wasted in the dramatic sense, just not fully inhabited, lived at a distance, passed through rather than stayed in. The question the proving is trying to answer is not, have I achieved enough? It is, am I enough? And those two questions have different answers available to them. The first can be answered by achievement, temporarily, partially, in the specific way that a glass of salt water addresses thirst. It feels like an answer while drinking and intensifies the need immediately after. The second cannot be answered by achievement at all, because the second is not a question about output, it is a question about worth. And worth, genuine, intrinsic, unconditional worth, is not something that can be demonstrated into existence. It is something that has to be accepted. And acceptance is an internal act, one that achievement, however impressive, cannot perform on behalf of the man who has not done it himself.
This is the thing the engine was never designed to tell him. It was designed to run, to produce, to keep moving toward the next thing, in the hope that the next thing would be the one that finally settled the question. But the question is not answerable by the next thing. It was never answerable by anything. It is answerable only by the specific, difficult, non-performative act of deciding, without further evidence, without the next achievement, without anyone's external validation, that who you are is sufficient, that the baseline value of the person is not located in the output, that you were enough before the first achievement, and you are enough after the last one, and everything in between was real and valuable, and did not require you to earn the right to have been alive while it was happening. That decision, the decision that the engine was never going to produce, is the only one that actually closes the question. Not permanently, not without the old engine occasionally starting up again, but genuinely, with real effect, in a way that achievement, accumulated to any quantity, never quite managed to do. Think about the last significant thing you achieved, something real, something that required effort and produced a result you can point to, and track what happened in you immediately after it was complete. Was there a period of genuine rest in what you had done, of satisfaction that lasted long enough to be inhabited? Or did the next thing start almost immediately, the next goal, the next target, the next version of what would be sufficient appearing before the last one had fully settled? And ask the question you have probably been too busy to ask clearly. Who are you proving it to? Not in the general sense, specifically. Whose voice is the one that says, "Not yet," when the achievement arrives? Whose approval has never quite been sufficient, regardless of what you produced? Because that voice was installed by someone, somewhere, in a specific context. And that person is probably gone from your daily life for a long time, and yet their assessment is still the one you are running toward, still the one whose satisfaction would, if it ever came, finally close the question. You have proved it. Whatever standard was set for you, by the father whose approval was rare, by the dismissal you swore to answer, by the culture that communicated you were not yet sufficient, you have exceeded it. By any reasonable external measure, you have exceeded it. The proof is there. It is real. It is more than enough by every standard anyone outside of you has ever set. The problem is that the judge is inside, and the inside judge was set to a standard that external achievement cannot reach. Not because you have not achieved enough, because the standard was never about achievement. It was about acceptance, and acceptance is not produced by achievement. It is chosen, deliberately, in the quiet space after the engine has been given permission to stop, where the man who has been proving himself his whole life finally sits down with the question directly and says, "I am not going to answer this with another achievement. I am going to answer it now, with nothing in my hands, from exactly where I am. I am enough, not because I have proved it, because I have decided it, and the decision is mine to make, and I am making it." That is the hardest thing in this entire series, because all of the other episodes required you to do something. This requires you to stop, to put down the proof and sit with the silence of it and find out, for the first time without the engine running, who you are when you are not achieving anything. That person was always enough. He was enough before anyone told him he needed to prove it. He will be enough long after the proving stops. And the day you decide that is the day the engine finally has permission to rest. Not to stop forever, to rest. To work in service of the life you actually want, rather than in service of a question that was never going to be answered from the outside. That day is available. It does not require one more achievement first. It requires only the decision. And the decision is yours, and it has been waiting for you for a very long time. Next episode, the integrated man. Who is he on the other side of all these patterns? What does the man who has done this work actually look like? And what does he build that the unexamined man cannot? The final episode of this series, that one is next, and it may be the most important one.